I am an alcoholic.
I'm an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I'm an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
I am an alcoholic.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I am your alcoholic host, Raymond, and tonight I am joined with
Joe C., someone in long-term recovery, a happy customer of Alcoholics Anonymous.
happy customer Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what I like to hear. You're there's so much to say about you, and I'm grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm grateful to you to take time out of your day to talk to me, Joe. I haven't really talked one-on-one with you, but
Yeah.
I've had a chance to do some of the internet stalking to see who you are and what you're about, and I've talked to a couple people about you, and they said you're an all right guy to talk to. So, and if I'm not mistaken, you have 40 years or more than that of sobriety.
Well, I usually just say since the disco era, as opposed to I don't like seeing people use their sobriety as some currency or something like that.
Okay.
People who introduce themselves with their sobriety date and their home group and whatever else. But it was mid 70s. So I've been sober in 6 different decades so far.
Wow.
Not for all of them. I mean, we're only 2 years into this one.
Yeah. Disco era.
Yeah.
There's some decent music out there. I don't find myself listening to a whole lot of that genre, but it's okay, I guess.
Tonight's the night. And, he was starting to wear the flared pants and the sequin jackets. And even the Rolling Stones, when Some Girls came out, and then Black and Blue, they were getting a little dance clubbish. And the Bee Gees went from a folk band to Top of the Pops disco era stuff. So, yeah, I was pretty judgy of what was good music and what wasn't back then. But I look back on it now with more appreciative eyes. I could see the sort of zeitgeist of what was going on. And I was already sober, so I wasn't doing cocaine, so I didn't appreciate it the way they did.
Oh, goodness. Excuse me. Oh, wow. So, mid 70s. You don't look that old to be sober that long, man. You only look a couple years older than me.
Thanks. Just in case, I've already lived longer than I ever expected. If people are trying to figure out the Sudoku math, okay, so I was at my first meeting at the age of 14 in 1974, sober at 76, and I'm 62 now. So there's all of so other people don't have to troll me on the internet.
Troll you. Oh, goodness. Now you're making me feel bad.
No. I do it too, right? It's how I do my research. It's how I put together my blogs, my books, my podcasts, my learning, right? I think it's the best era in all of the time I've been in recovery to find recovery. Because, if the 12-step model rubs you the wrong way, knock yourself out, cognitive behavioral therapy in the form of smart recovery is just a click away, or life ring, or for women, there's positive affirmations of She Recovers. There's Women for Sobriety. There's Refuge Recovery, if you like more of an Eastern philosophy point of view, or Dharma Recovery. And the cool thing, maybe we can talk about this a little bit, is all of those people are getting sober, staying sober, and helping others find sobriety. So it's an interesting question we might explore. What is the secret sauce? What is keeping people sober? You know, we both know people who say, oh, it's the steps, it's a higher power, it's meetings, it's service. But then why do people who don't work steps, don't know steps, don't read the book we read, stay sober? And how did they get sober, right? So, I think there's still some mystery left in it. But I have some wild guesses as to what makes it work, and I bet you do too.
I believe alcoholics working with other alcoholics is one of the keys.
If there was a buzzer or some sound effects for this podcast, I'd hit it, because
there you go.
Slam dunk. I think it's one alcoholic talking to another, because even if you look at the history of AA, nobody who wrote their stories for the first edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous had ever heard of the 12 steps. Only Bill Wilson thought them up. Nobody had seen them until the book was published. Yeah, some people saw them when they were in a draft form, but not many. I mean, there were only dozens of members at the time anyway. And so all of those stories, 3/4 of them died sober, and they didn't work the 12 steps because they'd never heard of them. They did something else, right? And even Bill Wilson's bright light experience, which people love or hate or criticize, or call it the belladonna effect, or whatever it was, being touched by the hand of God, whatever someone believes, that's fine. But that didn't sustain Bill Wilson, because he was thirsty in Akron and wanted to drink because a business deal had gone badly. And the only thing that could rescue him from that was talking to another alcoholic. And so he's talking to a doctor. What's he going to tell him about, the disease of addiction, right? I mean, he just had to identify with the guy, addict to addict, one alcoholic talking to another. That's all they had to work with. And that's what we find everywhere else, right? I've gone on to define some of the characteristics, borrowing from some of the other people who study us. Like you and I aren't the only people who are curious about what works. Academics and the medical community have been sort of studying people in recovery in, sort of randomized longitudinal studies. And one of the things I've blogged about a little bit is something Professor David Best came up with called CHIME. And it's an acronym for connection, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment. And we've all heard the sort of connection thing, the famous TED talk that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection, and everyone stands up and applauds and, hallelujah. But that's a reductionist, that's a partial truth, because I can find connection by going back to the crack house or going to the neighborhood pub. They'll remember my name. What we need is the type of connection that comes from people that, as the scientists refer to us, that model pro-social behavior, which is, have something we want, right? We go, hey, that person's life is just as fucked up as mine, and he's staying sober. What the hell is he doing? Like he just went through a breakup, and he didn't go and get high. He just lived through it. He lost it. Someone else loses their job and they're doing fine. Someone else fails an entrance test to a university they really wanted to go to, and they don't, they don't get self-destructive. They just, come to a meeting and help another alcoholic just so they can stop ruminating on what went wrong. And wow, now that's the connection that they're talking about that is effective. And the hope part of it, which is H, we don't manufacture that ourselves. I didn't bring hope with me to AA. I was a pessimist. I thought that AA worked for you, but it wouldn't work for me. I didn't have the integrity to stay sober. But you said, the people at the meeting said, Joe, if we can do it, you can do it. What are you doing tomorrow? Nothing. Okay, I'll pick you up. Want to go to a meeting? Okay. So I got my, and now I'm going to stay sober because we're going to a meeting tomorrow, right? So, there's my little connection. There's the hope, and it's contagious. It's like bloody COVID. We catch it off of other people. I'm going to close this damn WhatsApp because it keeps, I don't know if you hear it on your end, but it keeps beeping at me.
Yeah, I hear
So hope is contagious. And you can get that in any sort of recovery place where you have people who, are getting their life back, finding their self-worth and dignity, overcoming obstacles in life, getting healthier. When I started hearing that people were, starting bands sober, and they were, going out to concerts, and they were, going skiing and camping and all this stuff that I thought had to, those were all things I associated with drugs and alcohol. And I thought, sobriety couldn't include them, but, it's not what I learned from the, I got my hope back from just watching other people. And then the other three are sort of identity. My idea of someone in recovery was someone to be pitied. Poor Raymond, he's got to stay sober, right? He's living a provisional life. He can't get fucked up on the weekends. What a loser, and what a quitter. But let
me jump in on that.
Jump in.
That's actually, excuse me, that's actually something I'd say when like in my younger years, alcoholics for however you just worded it. It's just like, yeah, I'm not going to quit drinking.
I'm no quitter.
Yeah, I'm not a quitter and all this. And it's like down the road and you're just like, oh man, I was such an asshole back then. That just totally rang the bell up there. Cause it's just like, yeah. And this is just like, now it's just like all the time and money and energy I wasted doing that. Just even just on the weekends, it was just like, what was I thinking? I wasn't. The alcohol was.
Yeah, like things weren't working out for me, right? Like nobody arrives at the doors of recovery on a winning streak. But still, I had this idea, either A, that somehow I could magically get it all back, and that's just delusional. That's magical thinking. Or what? Or that, I was going to die some tragic alcoholic death because that's romantic, that's artistic, And I'd made these ideas up, and I wasn't asking for input. I wasn't looking for a better way of seeing things. I thought I was right about these things, and that's what's so dangerous, right? We think we're right about this, and that we're not going to find a new way of looking at things.
Right.
So what do you think turned you around from being what a bunch of losers to these are my people?
When I came back to AA, desperate, it was, I didn't know what to do. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, I came back and I started listening and I'm like, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And people started making suggestions and I'm just like, well, that's stupid. Well, call people. That's stupid. And now I'm sitting here and I do the same thing. And I'm like, it's not that hard. This is what you got to do. But it just clicked. And I came back and I actually started listening to people. I mean, this was when I finally was desperate enough. That's when I actually started to listen.
Yeah.
And, I had to be desperate enough.
For me, it was getting invested in others. For instance, I was planning my escape from AA, not planning on sticking around until I heard my cousin had a problem and wanted to get clean and sober. And now my cousin was a life worth saving to me, where my life, I didn't feel the same way about it. So I wanted her to get sober. So I started taking her to meetings and saying all the things I'd heard and just being a parrot of all of the, slogans and cliches and whatever. I joined a group and got her to join it. We went to young people's conferences to spend the weekend with other people in recovery. And, we hung out with people, stayed up until sunrise, drinking tea or coffee or pop or whatever. And, we just had these running mates that we just hung out with. Right. And just like you were talking about the secret sauce, one alcoholic talking to another, one addict talking to another, that's what we had. Right. And I got it by not, like, I didn't get to the honesty you got to or the desperation you got to, but I got there a different way. And I thought my way was weird when I started hearing AA being described in a fundamentalist way. You've got to have it to give it away. The steps are in an order for a reason. This false narrative about how everyone in early AA did the steps in a uniformed, structured way. And none of that was true, but it was what they were starting to feed newcomers with, this sort of revisionist history. All of the founders were dead now, so that people could make this shit up. But when I started finding out the real history, I found it out like Bob and Bill got sober just talking to each other. And when that wasn't enough, they knew enough to go help somebody else, right? Where are they going to find another drunk and talk to them, right? And they just kept doing that without a program, without a book, without a sponsor. They did what you and I did, and it just isn't that different. And it's no different in NA, and it's no different in Dharma recovery or a Life Ring or any of these other fellowships. It's peer to peer. It's not self-support, but mutual aid.
Mutual aid.
Yeah. Like, could I help myself? No, I tried. Didn't you try to quit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at it. It was hard to remember that you quit drinking on acid.
I bet. No, I never heard it phrased as mutual aid, and it's just like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes it easy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just see so. You hear so many horror stories, and I think about AA, and I think this is why I wanted to do the podcast, and I wasn't even 6 months before I even started this podcast. Today's day I keep track because I don't know why I do it. That's what my sponsor told me to do, and that's what I do.
Good.
292 days.
Right on.
So
yeah.
I did this for my recovery, but I wanted to hear the other ways, because there's people out there. They just you can talk all day, but sometimes it's not going to be this step. It's not going to be that step. It's the person you're meeting and that person that's sponsoring you guys could have totally unrelatable life experiences and experiences with alcohol, or the reason why you used alcohol or drugs or any of that. So it could be way off field. And some people say you need to do steps right away. Some say you need to take time. And it's just, I do this to get a better understanding and put it out there. That way it might relate to someone else.
Yes, exactly. And they won't know for sure whether it'll work, but it gives them something to try.
Yeah.
Because when I listen to people with their best practices, this is what turned the corner for me. Nothing else worked. I did XYZ, went to a big book weekend, or maybe it was, let go of the whole 12-step concept and just focused on more of a living sober thing. Let's just concentrate on one day at a time. Let's concentrate on self-care. Let's concentrate on, first things first, and thinking before I act, like think, not just think, feel, respond without considering the consequences of my actions. That, if people can get to that, don't tell me that won't be enough to keep them sober for the rest of their life. Now, they might need more to add the meaning and a total sense of empowerment in life, but it can change a person from impossible, never going to make it, to, expecting to be successful. You were saying something about, you did what someone else said and it worked for you. And I hear people talk about the way they do it, because for everybody, they think it's no, not everybody, but there are some people who get a little enthusiastic about their style of recovery, their style of 12-step, or their style of something else. And they think it is a formula for everybody. But if we made a list of everybody's best practices, this is what turned the corner for me. You and I can both think of somebody who that failed them. That didn't work for them. They had to do something else. They had to take another path. We're all samples, right? We're all equal in as much as, how long we've been sober is the fool's math, because the distance between you and your next drink, or me and my next drink, is the same arm's length, right? Yeah. And I've seen people with 40 years sobriety who worked in a treatment center, who were helping people who knew everything about the science of addiction and the science of recovery. And they went from being, executive director of one treatment center to being a client in another. Like, what the hell happened, right? It just, like, we improve our outcome rates, but there's no guarantees. It's just like you can reverse cancer by eating a plant-based whole food diet and starting to exercise and whatever else. And if you get cancer again, it doesn't mean you didn't do your step 4 well enough. Sometimes shit happens, right? That's life.
I've never heard it worded that way. That's wow. I got to remember that one.
Yeah.
That's
Well, luckily you recorded it.
yeah. Luckily, you said it's like, now I'm like getting stuck here because I got hung up on that.
Anything worth doing is worth doing badly. So muddle through it.
No, well, like the cancer thing. It's like, I mean, you hear of people never smoking cigarettes or anything like that, and they get lung cancer and stuff like that, and it's just like, is it some type of predeterminating thing inside of you? Like is that what's wrong with us? Is it something
we're only so far
or?
along on our sort of knowledge base, our evolution as a species, right? You know, I fall into the trap of thinking of ourselves as, you know, because we're the most evolved humans that have been here so far, that this is as good as it gets, right? But we might only be 10% of our potential, right? So there's so much left to know. And there's mystery is always going to be part of it, right? We can figure out the math and still not know exactly the day the universe began or when we're going to die, right? That's what we all really want to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
How and when, right? You know, it helps us plan accordingly. It'd be better if we gave out 30-day chips to people who are 30 days away from their next drink, not 30 days away from their last drink, because it'd help them plan. But we don't know. I can't look at anybody else and know if they've had their last, kick at the can with addiction. I can't look in the mirror and know for sure that I have. I can just continue to do things that improve my potential, improve my outcome rate. But, you know, there's no sure things in life like cancer or addiction, right? It just...
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because... You know, it's weird for me to say it. I see like people, like newcomers coming in to meetings now, and I'm never going to drink again, and all the and you know that excitement.
Yeah,
and I remember. Yeah, I was saying that. I was a little over 60 days.
Yeah,
when I came into back to AA. And, you know, I came to AA to try to save my marriage.
Right.
And because she knew I'd probably go back to drinking one way or another. Because... what is the term? White knuckling. I was white knuckling it.
Yeah.
I was dry drunk. What however you want to word it. But on day 60, the day 60, I remember this clear as day. You know, I was starting to try to make changes and spend time with my family, which I was horrible at, you know, because I was always put myself first and all that other stuff. I figured out after going through working my program, and told me she wanted a divorce, and it's just like, and that was just like the worst feeling ever. And I'm like, what? I'm not drinking, and all, you know. So, you know, I really had to look at why, and I'm just like, oh, you know. I'll never, you know, I try to figure this stuff out and just trying to get her to not say what she just said to me for all this time. And, you know, I always hear alcoholics are these manipulative people. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to manipulate her into not divorcing me.
Yeah.
And I said, and I was ended up talking to a therapist and all this stuff because I was feeling feelings I've never felt before.
Yeah.
Ever. Which I was shocked because, you know, I was married prior to this, but this was someone I've got 2 children with, and
Right.
you know, I've took her for granted, but I'm just like, I vow to do this. I vow to do that. I started writing out all the stuff I vow to do and just try to win her back and all that. And when all this other time, I should have just been focusing on my sobriety and just, you know, trying to do whatever it was. And it was, I said, well, write out what you need me to do and all this. And she did the total opposite. And it was just like knife in the chest, knife in the back, knife in the ears and eyes and everything.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't understand why you won't go to AA. It's not, you don't, just because you're hung up on the religion aspect and the higher power thing. All you gotta do is have all this stuff. And I'm like, ha ha ha, I just found my way back in. And then it was just, I was like, I'll do AA and she'll take me back and all this. And I was still trying to manipulate.
Right.
Went through one sponsor. It was trying to do this traditional stuff, and I'm just like feeling all this pain and remorse, and just feeling like a pile of manure. And it was just, you know, I started actually getting into secular meetings.
Yeah.
And started making real connections with people, and people would actually just take a second and listen to me and get me to slow down. And they go, have you ever thought about focusing on your sobriety first? Everything else, that's the only thing that matters right now is your sobriety.
Yeah.
I go, well, why do I feel like crap? Well, you've never felt these feelings before sober. And I'm like, oh. I just let go and started focusing on my sobriety, and just worked on that and just try to be there for her when she needed stuff and be there for my kids and all that. And back in May, we celebrated our 9-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, man.
And
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And
you know, let me just jump in for a bit. And I want to hear more about this for sure. I do. But you've heard, and I've heard too, that you have to get sober for yourself. You know, you have to. And you didn't do that, and I didn't do that. I got sober to help my cousin. You got sober to save a relationship. Maybe there's no such thing as a wrong reason to get sober.
I agree.
I do. I do think that now, because like when you hear these cliches, you got to get sober for the right reasons. You go, what? You can put that on a bumper sticker. It must be true, right? But usually these simple ideas are reductionist thinking, right? You know, they're oversimplified and they don't take into account the other side of the story, right? Yeah, like I did the steps for the wrong reason. You know, I joined a group for the wrong reason. You know, because I didn't, how could I have known what was right? I had to try things out. I had to fake it in a way, right? Where, you know, I would say I'm Joe and I'm an alcoholic. I didn't really believe that. I thought I was a heavy social drinker with bad luck. But alcoholic was a way too clinical, simple, you know, label, and that wasn't my problem. My problem was more complicated than that. But I was saying those things just to fit in. I was hiding out in plain view, planning my escape. But I knew well enough to, if I put up a fight, if I challenge them about this, you know, superstitious stuff about God or, this, whatever it was, being one day at a time. One day at a time, bullshit. You're telling me that to be in AA, I have to stay sober forever, right? So don't tell me it's one day at a time. It's forever. Like, because I couldn't understand what that meant to them, right? And it wasn't because they were, they're trying to explain the ineffable, right? How do you explain what we don't have language for, right? And so people try to explain it with, it's fate, it's my higher power, it's the program. What the hell does all of that mean, right? It means that it isn't about explaining. This is something that the then chair of the General Service Conference, a non-alcoholic trustee, who was he was Reverend Ward Ewing, and he was a big fan of agnostics and atheists in AA. He spoke at our first ever international conference, which was in Santa Monica in 2014. He was invited to speak, and he came not to tell us how it was going to be, but he took more notes than I took. He was there to learn, and he was a student of he considered AA his teacher to learn about addiction. But the point is, he had this expression. He said that it's not, we shouldn't be so focused on explanation, finding the best explanation, because again, what you or I might call the secret sauce, he called the experience. That I share my experience with you and something transformative happens. You feel hope from my experience. I feel hope from telling it to you. I say, here's what you got to do. And I think, that's what I'm going to do. Like the actual communicating, the actual connecting is what is the effective thing. And having the right words or explaining it in a certain way, I think it's a natural, phenomena, sobriety. Other people think it's a supernatural phenomena. And who cares about that? We were talking before you pressed record about why do people get so caught up in the ways other people explain it and try to find fault in their way of explaining recovery, like there's some reward for finding the fault. There's no reward in it.
It's the reverse. They do personalities before principles instead of doing what's preached, principles before personalities.
Exactly. And he was trying to tell us that, look, don't get so caught up in how they're explaining it wrong at their other meeting, how they think it's all about following the big book exactly as written, where that book doesn't speak to you. It's not important how they explain it. Is there something in their experience you can gain from? Is there something in your experience that can reach them? And there is. When I explain my suffering, nobody cares what I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got me on a whole nother level tonight, Joe.
Yeah. Well, you picked the right time for this,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is
that after dark, for people who are listening. It's, I don't know what time zone you're in, Raymond.
Eastern.
Okay. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. So it's like Saturday night, where, we're either at an AA meeting or looking for trouble. And here we are, waxing poetic, right? But it's not about, like one-upmanship or, finding the perfect one-liner. It's about experience. And this is something that this guy, Ward Ewing, he wrote in a Grapevine article, right? That was actually in the book, One Big Tent, which is a collection of stories of atheists and agnostics, which the Grapevine had been printing since the 60s. So it was stories from way back before most of AA was born till, 2014, when they started, taking what they had and putting a book together. And he'd written this story. And well, he used, his expression was experience trumps explanation. I believe today he'd use a different verb or adjective, right?
Yeah.
But experience is what matters. Explanation is, our pathetic attempt to, communicate, right? And we're using a tool that lets us down, the English language. And one of its big problems is I might find a word that's perfect for me, but that word means something different to you than it does to me. So I say it and you nod and we're both nodding, but you're having a different experience than I'm having.
Yeah. It's, man, you're making me think more than most of the people coming on here, man. This is good for me. I need this.
Well, it is good for us, right? That expression, think. Like everything in my life had become so reactive when I was deep in my addiction, right? My addiction was killing me and I was trying to protect it from other people who were trying to help me, right? I was, I would lie to anybody to get what the addiction needed, right? At my own expense, right? It was going to destroy the vessel that was keeping it alive. And that was me. So sobriety has been just the opposite, which is, having feelings and not reacting to them, having thoughts, having impulses, and think. Not all of my first ideas are my best ideas.
Why does all this sound familiar?
It's kind of the Eastern philosophers would call it the beginner's mind. In the Western world, we'd call it the scientific method, right? Taking an analytical, critical look at something. And critical isn't, there's a big difference between being critical and being cynical, right? I was cynical about AA, and that's not because I was so smart. That's just because, I've drawn these impulsive conclusions based on a limited number of facts instead of saying, Joe, you've only got, you can only see what's, your eyes can see, but there's more to this than you understand so far. But I didn't wait for that. I just drew these conclusions, and maybe that's just the survival technique necessary for being out there. As a teenage alcoholic, you got to lie on your feet. You got to act like you own the place when you walk into a bar. You can't go to the bartender and say, I'm 15, but I'm really thirsty. Can we work something out? You have to act like you know the owner, and he better hurry up and get you your drink, right? Or you're not going to get to stay. You got to find a way to, fake your way in there. And that's great for, life during wartime, but it's not, it doesn't work during a time of peace, right? Which is sobriety, right? That requires more, playfulness. And one of my concerns about AA is we've become rigid. We don't want to admit that we don't know what keeps us sober, what keeps each other sober, what forces are at work. So we rely on these, old explanations of things. Some of them aren't even our own experience. We just heard them and we repeat them like a parrot. People do that all the time when they quote Bill Wilson. I mean, what are they doing quoting a guy who was, 2.5 or 3 years sober, right? When anybody else in the room knows more about alcoholism than that guy did at that time. Not that that guy wasn't a smart guy and a critical, important person in our life today, but we borrow his authority because we've canonized him like he was, inspired by some higher plane when he was just trying to sell a book to make a few bucks. Right? Like I'm an author. I'll tell you what's an author's number one motive: sell books.
Yeah.
And they dream about being a bestseller, right? But, why sell millions when you can sell dozens? That's my latest rationalization anyway. So
I thought you wrote books to help people, man.
Well, that comes with the territory, right? If you want to catch fish, this is actually something I learned from someone who is teaching songwriting. Everything I know about writing and publishing, I learned in the music business. And he said, if you want to be successful fishing, don't think like a fisherman, think like the fish. Go to the part of the lake that they like, not the part of the lake that you like, right? Use the lure that they find attractive, not the lure that you find attractive. And when you're writing a song, don't tell them what you want to explain to it. You're going to write a hit song if you tell them what they wanted to say. That's going to be a hit song. If a song can reach you somewhere in your head, in your heart, in your crotch, in your feet, one of those 4 places, you've got a good song. If you can reach people in 2 of those 4 places, you've got a hit song. You've got something people will still be playing 20 years later. And that was important for me to know, because when I was in my, hating disco days, I didn't understand why it was successful when some of the folk singers or the rock bands that I thought were way better artists and had way more integrity weren't selling as many records. Well, what these disco songs were doing were reaching people in their crotch and in their feet, right? It made them want to fuck and it made them want to dance, right? And that's enough to sell records, right? I wanted something that was more cerebral, make me think, right? Make me, feel inspired. But those songs work too, right? But you gotta, to understand music, you gotta appreciate the whole realm of what motivates people. And the truth of the matter was, when I was acting like an intellectual snob alone in my car, I'll scream out Michael Jackson songs, right? Like there's some songs that, they're, not forbidden pleasures, but, songs I wouldn't say, I love that too, right? Because I think I'm above it or something, right? Like I still have this attitude. But Raymond, I have no idea when I went on this side tangent what the point was. Oh, it was about communicating and songwriting and what I learned from writing songs and what I learned about writing. Yes. But, any book that's going to help people has to, reach them in a certain way. And whatever your motivation is, because you want, usually it's when you're a teenager writing your first songs, you want to get laid and you want to be famous. Now, ask someone who's famous if that's a good idea, right? Some people who are famous would rather just be rich and anonymous. Like they don't want to be famous. And it wasn't what they thought it would be. But you can accidentally help people. And like being authentic is way better than being witty, because it's like the Marlboro Man isn't cool anymore. A man who is empathic, a man who is vulnerable is the new macho, right? It's not how much I can drink and what brand of cigarettes I smoke. It's whether I can actually be there for people, whether I can put myself out there and take the risk of being rejected. That's the new measure, I think.
Yeah, it took me a good minute to learn that and figure that one out.
Yeah. Yeah, and we learned it from others, right? Yeah. We thought, whoa, did he just say what he said? What I heard him say? Bro, you're in trouble. And then we saw how people responded to him. We go, oh, wow. He has nothing to fear because he's told us everything. Wow. Wouldn't that be nice to have nothing to fear, right? Like, I have this core belief that when you know who I really am, you will reject me. There's no facts to support this core belief, but even knowing I have this core belief isn't a cure for this core belief. I have another core belief that there will never be enough. There won't be enough time. There won't be enough money. There won't be enough love, and is that true? Right? Like if you're drinking from the river, are you taking water that I won't get to drink? No, there's enough for everybody, right? But I have this sense of scarcity that I wake up in the morning. I still have this, right? And I feel there isn't enough time. I got too much to do, right? Oh, I'd love to, but I have too much to do. Right? That's not enough time. And whether I think I don't have enough money or people don't love me the way I want to be loved, or people don't appreciate me for the way I want to be appreciated, or pay me the way I want to be paid. Like I've never gone hungry, right? I've never been friendless, right? I've been low, with the refill your tank light on plenty of times, but it's never killed me to be vulnerable. It's never killed me to take a risk. It's I've never died from being rejected, right? And that's what I fear. I fear it's gonna destroy me, and it's just it's a boogeyman. Right? It's like, you see your shadow against the wall and it scares you. You walk towards the shadow and it gets smaller instead of moving away from it and it gets larger, right? That's most of my fears are not right-sized at all. Yes, there are things to be afraid of in a dangerous world, but I don't think I have them right-sized most of the time. And that's the human experience more than the addict's dilemma. But when you add addiction to that, it just exacerbates it so much more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What surprises you most about sobriety?
What surprises me most? I don't know, just kind of like feeling I don't know, right now is like raw emotion.
Yeah.
That surprises me the most, because it's just trying to figure out, did I have these feelings before?
Yeah.
Or is this new? Did this, and it's hard to put into words, because it's just, I had a meeting tonight, and I was just trying to, it's kind of like being reborn in a way,
Yeah.
Once you start getting out of that, you come out of that haze and start realizing, what the hell have I been doing, and what the hell was I feeling? What was I thinking? And just the thoughts of some of the thoughts now. It's just like that surprises me a lot too. Thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Is what surprises me the most.
Yeah. I love your choice of words, raw feelings, because I think you describe it so well, right? It's not that you're having feelings, but that they're so vulnerable, they're so exposed, right?
Yeah.
and yeah, it's risky business, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the old days, we used to think we knew, can't feel that, have to hide that, have to cover it up, have to drown it. And that's what you value most in your recovery now.
Yeah. Have to keep it a secret.
Yeah. Here's something like I read about somewhere else. What does what is feeling wrong? What's the feeling associated with being wrong?
First thing comes to my mind is like guilt.
Guilt, like you should know better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of. Like,
anything else? Being wrong.
Guilt and shame, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what it boils. That's.
Well, now I'm playing with words here a little bit, but being wrong for me feels like being right, because I don't know I'm wrong. When I'm trying to get to the meeting and driving in the wrong direction, and I don't want to be late, so I'm speeding, I'm getting further away from the meeting I'm trying to get to, because I think I know, right? What you're describing is realizing or accepting that you're wrong, right? That's when I feel foolish. I feel ashamed. I feel unworthy, right? But when I'm actually wrong, I very rarely have a indicator on, Joe, you're wrong, Joe, you're wrong, Joe, you're wrong. I think I got this, right? Just like when I judged AA for what it was and why it wouldn't work for me. I was absolutely right about that in terms of how I felt. And I can be dead certain and completely wrong all at the same time, over and over again. You would think that you do that once, you'd be embarrassed enough that you would learn that when you jump to a conclusion that this is what this means, what else could it mean? This is something I learned from people in AA. Joe, what else could this mean? Right? When I'm saying, I feel this and I'm going to do this and this is what's going to happen. What else? Right? Like, what are the other possibilities? Right? Because it's, there's an expression by an old sort of Eastern philosopher that never before or against, because that's the mind's greatest enemy, is when, like, it's like when two people are watching a sporting event, whether it's called a ball and a strike or a strike, you can tell who cheers for which team, right? The way they saw it, right?
Yeah.
That was a fucking lousy call. No, it wasn't. It was right in there, right? Because as opposed to learning to appreciate baseball and learning the nuances, not only of the game, but adding the human element of a human being, judging, if someone lives or someone dies, if it's a ball or it's a strike, right? And I'm trying to learn in AA in this think idea is to remind myself of what there's a few people who've said it, but Victor comes to mind. Joe, you're pretty sure about yourself this time. What else could this mean? And I sort of reassess. Maybe I should call a friend. Maybe I should bring it up in a meeting. Maybe before I put my foot in my mouth, I should call my sponsor or some of my running mates and ask them, what do you think of this? This is what I'm thinking. How does it look to you? And really listen instead of, try to confirm my biases, try to find other ways, alternative ways of looking at things, right? Because, maybe I am right. Sometimes you're going to be, right? A stopped clock is exactly right twice a day, right? But sometimes I'm not. And the problem is I don't have a, you're wrong sensor. I just have a shame sensor when I feel unworthy and but those things those don't help me when I need them, right? I need them when I'm driving in the wrong direction and have a little buzzer go off and, show me a map and hell. Well, it wasn't that stupid. And turn around and at least, at least I can limit the damage that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Just sitting here thinking about this, it's reminding me of like where I've been catching, where I've made these changes in my life. And I'm like admitting when I'm wrong. And I'm just like, where the hell is this coming from? Yeah. Admit I was wrong. So it's just like, wow.
Yeah. Well, secular people, especially who don't believe that they're waiting for God's cryptic message for how their life is to roll out, we can get pretty cerebral, right? Like we can kneel at the altar of logic when some of these truths are not intuitive. They're the opposite. Like we think we have to have a stern, strong exterior and not be vulnerable. Dead wrong, right? That because it's that vulnerability that in surrendering we win, right? That's sort of a cliche way of looking at it, right? But I know what they mean when they say that, right? By being completely truthful. Like for instance, when I did step 5, when for the first time ever I didn't. And again, this isn't an intellectual process. It's an experiential process of doing something that I don't know what the outcome will be. In fact, I'm taking a risk because I don't care how many people tell me, I did my step 5 with someone and they love me more than they loved me before. I'm still thinking I'm going to do my step 5 with Raymond and he's going to be disgusted in me and, lose my phone number, right? Like that's my fear. That's my go-to, risk assessment. But by doing that for the first time was the first time I felt like I even joined AA. Because for the first time ever, I took the chance. I was completely vulnerable with someone, told them my deepest, darkest secrets, risked being rejected, risked having them disgusted by who I was and what I'd done. And instead, we were laughing about their foibles and my foibles, and I was completely free of all of that shit that was stuck in me, that was holding me back, right? That's not an intellectual process. That's an experiential process. And if you rely on intellect alone, you're going to miss a lot because, some of it doesn't add up. It isn't mathematical. It's more artistic than scientific.
That makes a lot more sense to me, because it's like, they're like, someday someone's going to sound crazy enough, they're going to ask you to sponsor them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this? Lo and behold, it happened. And I'm just like, I just did the same thing my sponsor did with me. And it was quite the experience. And it's just like, what are they going to say? And so I just, we did the back and forth, and it's just like, oh, this is how this works.
Yeah. This is how it works. People don't need to be told. I don't have to have the answers. People need to feel heard, right? Like, isn't that what made you close to your sponsor? The way they could listen to you, like give you their complete and undivided attention and just let me say what I need to say. They don't solve my problems, but that process of verbalizing it lessens the power of it, right? A problem shared is a problem halved was an expression in Montreal where I got sober. If you came with a problem, don't leave with a problem. A problem shared is a problem halved. And that's realistic. That's not, no one's saying we're going to take your pain away.
Right. Yeah, I the realism to it is, because it's that was the one biggest thing is just like, when I started, I'm like, okay, I looked at the original 12, the 12 steps out of the big book. I'm like, so I'm gonna pray, and this is all gonna go away. Okay. Hey, make this go away. No, I still feel like shit. How does this work? Then sitting there doing this, I still can't. I just the experience after I finished my, I guess in traditional sense to be my fifth step,
right?
Going over with my sponsor. Mm-hmm. We did like I got to burn my fourth step, and
yeah,
it was just like that was an experience, and
that's a good exercise.
It's like, I did the work.
Yeah.
No, I try to think and try to look at that and try to read all these other ways before, and no, just had to get it off my chest and move on and be here in the now. And just a little stuff like that. I get so lost for words on this stuff because it's just
Well, but you're expressing it perfectly because it is that idea that don't kneel at the altar of reason, right? It's got to be experienced. Our explanation will never live up to the experience. And when you were talking about the idea of like being a sponsor, you know, I finally learned that it was, you know, everybody can listen, right? Like, what else did Bill Wilson offer Dr. Bob? Told him his story, listened to the other guys. Like, really, you know, nothing magic was said that turned the corner. It was not what Bill Wilson said. It was what Bob Smith related to. And you don't know what that's going to be, right? You just put it out there and they find something. And then it's the listening. That's the other thing about being a sponsor is people don't choose their sponsor based on their virtues. It's based on their damage. So being asked to be a sponsor is definitely a sign that you're still pretty human, because, you know, that's what I'm attracted to. The person whose life is on fire, but their disposition is still peaceful. How the fuck do they do that? Right? You know?
it's an art.
It's something that gets my attention for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like someone who's got a high-paying job and handsome, healthy, successful, and happy. Oh wow, gag me with a spoon, right? Like, like of course you're happy, you idiot. Like, it's not virtuous being happy in your circumstances, but give me the guy who's walked to the meeting because his car broke down along the way, and it was the first person to say to the new person, "Are you doing okay? Can I give you my number?"
Yeah, why is that? I'd have never thought of that. I see myself still having bad days, and here's my number.
Yeah, well, like connection is when you think of puzzle pieces, right? It's like, like the things that fit together aren't exactly the same, but you can't see the picture until they go together, right? Like together we can see the picture, right? We've got all the puzzle pieces in the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Where alone we're just a potential, but not there's no connection there. You need the connection to get it all started, and then from the connection comes hope, and from the hope comes a sense of identity. Where I don't think I deserve a special prize for being having addiction. I don't think it's a disability, and I should get a handicap parking spot. But I'm not ashamed of it, right? There's no, I don't think I'm any worse than anybody else because of it. So, my identity's changed, and then, even if you just stay in the recovery community, that can be very meaningful. Like that, connecting with other people can be very meaningful, and it's empowering. We learn that we didn't think we could do this, and here we are a month sober. Here we are, a year sober. Like, how the fuck did that happen? But it's evidence. It defies our, conclusions, because, it isn't what we thought was possible. And that's very empowering. That's a dangerous word for some. Well, no, we're powerless. We're always powerless. Don't talk about empowerment. But, that expression, you're best thinking got you here? Yeah. It was my impulsive thinking that was killing me, but my best thinking, persuaded me to give this meeting one more try, come back again tomorrow. It was my best thinking. It's the best I could come up with at the time.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know, with, being, what are your thoughts with people that's been in AA? Because you hear the stories of people, they came to AA, they got sober, and do you think you can maintain sobriety walking away from AA?
Yes, I think most people do. And, like at our inner group in Toronto, they engrave a lot more 1-year medallions than 5-year medallions. But I don't think all those people who weren't here to get their 5-year medallion died a horrible, tragic death. I think a lot of people get what they need from AA. They develop what they call recovery capital, like they've got a relationship that supports their recovery. They have a job that supports their recovery. They've got assets, community, a certain level of socioeconomic stability. These are all things that support recovery. They have something to live for, something to lose that they don't want to lose. They're going to be fine. What they learned in AA, you don't need an AA meeting for it, right? You can help other people. You can be altruistic. You can continue to meditate. You can continue to self-evaluate. People survive on their own. Why stay? Well, that's where the action is, right? But like I don't feel dependent on meetings. There have been times in my recovery because of family issues, because of work issues and careering, where I'd go 2 months without going to a meeting. It's not like I quit AA and I was fed up. Everybody who's sober a year should have something they'd rather do than going to the meeting, right? To find that real meaning in life, it's got to be beyond just the recovery circle. And people who stay in that recovery circle, they're like the bar flies that, we're always at the bar, right? Other people just come in there, get drunk on the weekend and go live their life, right? And they go to the gym and they, invent things, and they, work with people and have a family, right? And other people just stay at the bar. And I think that's part of AA mythology, that people who stop going to meetings relapse. Some people who go to 5 meetings a week relapse. Some people who haven't been to meetings in years have horrible things happen to them and don't even think about drinking. So I think it becomes a matter of choice. I'm still a student of life. I'm still learning. I still, I found ways to give back in the music business, and I've found ways to give back in my profession, helping people with things that frustrate them. One of the greatest gifts of sobriety for me is I'm dependable. People trust me with their money. Like that is, you couldn't have predicted that if you'd known me when I came in, that one day people will come to this guy for advice about long-term savings or, investment decisions. And that the fact that people rely on me, and that most of the time, like, I'm not flawless. I hurt people that I love the most. I let people down who, I want to support. I never get it perfect. I don't have a 10 for 10 record every day I play baseball, right? But I'm dependable. Like, I can be depended on. And that was, I didn't even put that in my wish list. I just thought that was outside of the realm of possibility. And that was from recovery. So I can make it out there without, but, I don't find AA boring and routine. I try to bring a beginner's mind to it all the time. I don't know what the skills I'm going to need to solve the problems of the future are. I don't think my learning is stopped. It's kind of where the action is, right? And I like meetings, but there are plenty of places I would rather be, right? I play softball on Tuesday nights, and he asked me to speak. Nope, maybe in the fall. I got a meeting to go to, right? I just, I want to play ball, and I take it way too seriously. And because no one's scouting us for the majors, I just have that, addictive approach to things. I don't have a non-addictive approach to things because I'm not non-addictive, right? I even writing a book, it wasn't that I was disciplined. It wasn't that I was skilled. It was that I was relentlessly determined. The way I was, how am I going to get drugs without having any money? I found a way, right? I always found a way. And, I still have that approach to life that, there is no. There's go, there's no stop. So where am I? Ernie Kurtz, he said it so beautifully. He said, we must thirst. Where are we going to direct that thirst? So I can't transcend my human experience. I can't transcend my addiction, but I can take those addictive qualities, and I've learned to point them in a direction that can do some good most of the time. And I think that's enough for one day. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is this was amazing. I really needed this. I anytime I get to talk to someone in recovery, I always walk away with something. The one thing I like to ask is, what do you tell that person looking for that help right now, and they don't know?
Yeah. So you can never go wrong by helping someone else, right? Sponsoring is listening, not knowing the answers. Because we're not there to enable people. We're not there to, feed them. We're not going to lend them money, right? We don't have the answers to their problems because, we don't have enough of what they need. But we can listen. And in listening, they can figure it out for themselves by trial and error and survive this game of life. And in doing that, we forget about our own problems for an hour and we survive the game of life, right? And sometimes the people you help now, are going to be your bedrock when you need it later on, because, my recovery story isn't, the perfect mutual fund that, I only want the risk that goes up, Joe. I don't want that risk that, it goes down for 3 years, right? Just the up risk. I don't want to just make 3%, but, I don't want it going down, right? Well, that's, That's what we call la la land. Right? And people can be reasoned with even when they start out with unreasonable positions. So start where you're at. All of those skills we had in staying high, in hiding the truth from our loved ones, those skills can be redirected in helping our group survive, helping others get through the day, and just sort of creating a community that we're proud of, that we feel a part of, and become self-sustaining, because it's the you and I together that makes it. It's not me, it's not you.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say is our currency is not expertise. There isn't a single expert, especially in this day and age. There's nobody that has 10 years of Zoom AA experience. Not one, right? We're all pioneers again in this thing, but we all have experience, and everybody's experience has equal value. The person who reeks of alcohol, right, their experience is equal to the person with 30 years of sobriety, because, it's a different, unique experience. I'm me because all the other, personalities were taken, right? The only, thing I'm good at is my experience, and the only thing you're good at is your experience. So I can't do your experience. I can't express your experience. You can, and vice versa. So for someone who's new, way to go. You've got skills that are going to get you through. You're going to have to learn to be comfortable with discomfort. Make room for not having your immediate needs satisfied, because they're not going to kill you. You just think they will. And it's going to be hard. Before there was Brene Brown or Eckhart Tolle, we read a book by a guy named Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled. First 3 words: life is hard. And if you can accept that, you can get through anything.
Oh, I agree with that. Joe, I appreciate you so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Ditto, brother. You are a brother from another mother. I really think this, why have an experience when you can preserve an experience? And these podcasts do that. And we don't know who they're helping. I mean, meetings are great for extroverted people. But, some people, the idea of going into a Zoom room or a physical space and expressing their deepest, darkest secrets with others, just never going to happen. Right. Yeah. So what else we got? And podcasting is one of those things.
Yeah. And make sure, shoot me all your links and stuff that you want in the show notes. That way I get that out there for you.
WhatsApp. Should I send them to you on WhatsApp?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
That's fine. Yeah, I get all that. So yeah, whatever you want on there, I'll put on there. And, I'm going to have to hop in, you chair meetings or
yeah.
Send me some links to that too. If it's one of the nights I'll have to slip into one of those. So
yeah, I'm actually, when we log off, I'm going to start a 10 o'clock meeting in Montreal called Whatever Works. I'll just be in the background bombing the Zoom bombers, but Beyond Belief Toronto, I'll send you all the links. Let's hang out.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking my happy ass to bed here in a little bit. So I get up and get this edited tomorrow, get this going, get this out there for everyone to hear. Because
wish I had your discipline, man.
Well,
I'm glad today it's you, not me. So thanks a million.
Prior military, 19 years cop. That's probably where a lot of my problems came from. But hey,
And yeah, it's what makes you you, and it's where your skills are too, isn't it? The double-edged sword, eh?
yeah. So,
Okay.
but man,
Yeah. Well, thanks for entertaining me, Raymond. You've been very kind to me, and I'll never forget it. We'll talk again soon.
yes, thank you, Joe. Have a good night,
You bet.
man.
You too.